classmates. I am Clarissa Balag and I will continue the discussions about scaffolds. Let's start with the definition of scaffolds. Scaffolds, it is a temporary structure to provide a platform at different level of a buildings for workers and materials. It is used when height of wall or column or other structural member of a building exceeds about 1.5 meter. It is the temporary support system provided for the construction and maintenance purposes. It consists of supports and a working platform for workers and materials. The difference between scaffolds and scaffolding. Scaffolding is a method of scaffolds. Scaffolding is also referred as scaffolder staging, which is a provisional structure used for supporting a work team and materials to assist in the construction, repairs, and maintenance of buildings, tall residential as well as commercial structures, bridges, including all types of man-made structures. Now let's take a look at the basic components that are used in scaffolding. First is standards. These are the vertical member of the framework supported in the ground or drums or embedded into the ground. The standards, also known as uprights, where they are perpendicular tubes that shift the entire weight of the structure to the ground, where they lean on a square base plate to scatter the weight, as you can see in the picture. Next is ledgers. The horizontal supporting members running parallel to the wall or ledgers are flat tubes that join between the standards. Braces. Braces are diagonally fixed on standards, a rigid connection that holds one scaffold member in a fixed position with respect to another member, or to a building or structure. One of the most common types is the fabricated frame scaffold made of modular frames and braces. Next is putlugs. Putlugs are placed one end on ledgers and other ends right angles on the wall. This is a transverse member. Due to putlug scaffolding using a wall for support, it means that the scaffold structure is more rigid, that it can stand stable even in poor weather conditions such as wind. Next is transoms. Transoms are a type of putlugs supported on ledgers on both sides. Transoms is a short horizontal tubes spanning across ledgers, normally at right angles to the face of the building. They may also be used to support a working platform. Bridle. This is a member used to bridge a wall opening. Support one end of the putlug at the opening, or it is a member used to bridge openings. Next is boarding. Boarding is a horizontal platform supported on putlugs and is used for the support of workmen and materials at the time working, or planks on which workmen stand. Next is guardrail. This is a rail provided like a ledger at the working level. Rail provided at 1 meter level to the guard, the men working on the boarding. Next is two-board. These are boards placed parallel to ledgers and supported on putlugs to give protection at the level of the working platform. Boards placed parallel to boarding near the wall to give protection to workers. let's proceed to the types of scaffolding. So these are the types of scaffolding: single scaffold, double scaffold, ladder scaffolds, cantilever scaffolds, suspended scaffolds, steel or tubular scaffolds. So first, I will discuss the single scaffolds. Scaffolds it consists of standards, footlogs, ledgers, wooden boards, braces used for ordinary buildings. It is also known as bricklayer scaffolding. It is commonly used for bricklaying and also called footlag scaffolding. This type of scaffolding is mostly used for brickwork and consists of an outer row of verticals called standards, to which longitudinal members are tied at different level of working. These are some of the examples of single scaffold. Double scaffolding or mason scaffolding. It consists of two rows of standards. The first row is placed at 20 to 30 centimeter away from the wall, while the other framework is placed at 1 meter distance from first one. Raking shores are provided. Used for superior works, it is also called as independent scaffolding. This is a support system used by masons for plastering. It has pairs of inner and outer verticals. The footlogs, instead of being supported on the wall, are supported in the inner system of verticals and longitudinals to give additional lateral stability to the narrow and tall framework. It is tied to the building at intervals when used for multi-story building. Next is cantilever scaffolding. It consists of cantilever standards, footlogs. It is used under following circumstances: ground is weak to support, construction of upper part of the wall is to be carried out. It is required to keep the ground near wall, free for traffic. For the construction of the upper part of a tall residential building, cantilever scaffolding eliminates unwanted scaffolding at lower levels, keeping the space free for vehicles. It is similar to the double scaffold, except that it is supported at the bottom by a cantilever prop. Next is suspended scaffolding. It consists of ropes and working platforms. Ropes can be raised manually or mechanically, used for light construction and finishing works of multi-story buildings. In tall buildings, for working at high levels, such as the painting of tall buildings, it is more convenient and economical to suspend the working platform from above the ground than to support it from the ground. This is especially so when the height is more than 30 meters. Next is steel or tubular scaffolding. Steel tubes 1 to 1/2 or 2 to 1/2 diameter. Coupler or clamps to hold pipes in different position. Prop nuts to hold single pipes. Bolts and nuts and washer weds and clip. Steel scaffolding, which is strong, can be easily joined, are the best for use in multi-story buildings. It will also prove to be wise as accidents are minimal in such cases. Now let's proceed to the hazards of scaffolding. When is a qualified person required for scaffolding? The standard defines a qualified person as one who, by possession of a recognized degree, certificate, or professional standing, or who by extensive knowledge, training, and experience has successfully demonstrated his or her ability to solve or resolve problems related to the subject matter, the work, or the project. Employees working on scaffolds are exposed to these hazards: fall protection, falls from elevation caused by sleeping and unsafe access and lack of fall protection, struck by falling tools or debris. Are there requirements for work on platform cluttered with debris? The answer to that question is that the standard prohibits work on platform cluttered with debris. Next is electrocution from overhead power lines. Next is scaffold collapse caused by instability or overloading. What are the requirements for scaffold planking? Scaffold planking must be able to support without failure its own weight, and at least 4 times the intended load. Solid sawn, solid sawn wood, fabricated planks, and fabricated platforms may be used as scaffold planks following the recommendation by the manufacturer or a lumber grading association or inspection agency. Bad planking giving way. This refers to planks that are either unstable, unsecured, or of insufficient size. Planks are the main platform upon which workers walk on the scaffold. If they're unstable, anyone can easily slip and fall off the scaffold. How wide does the work area need to be on scaffolding? Each scaffold, platforms, and walkway must be at least 18 inches or 46 centimeters wide. When the work is when the work area is less than 18 inches or 46 centimeters wide, guardrails and or personal fall arrest system must be used. Fall hazards. Falls may occur while climbing on or off the scaffold, working unguarded scaffold platform, when scaffold platforms or planks fail, protecting workers from falls. If a worker on scaffold can fall more than 10 feet, protect them by guardrails and or personal for arrest system or PFAS or PFAS. Install along open sides and ends, front edge of platforms not more than 14 inches from the work unless using guardrails and or PFAS. Top rails 39 to 45 inches tall. Mid rails halfway between top rail and platform. Two boards at least 3 to 1/2 inches high. What are the fall protection requirements for all scaffolds? Employers must provide fall protection for each employee in a scaffold more than 10 feet or 3.1 meters above a lower level. A competent person must determine the feasibility and safety of providing fall protection for employees, erecting or dismantling personal fall arrest system or PFAS. You should be trained how to properly use PFAS or PFAS. PFAS include anchorage, lifeline, and body harness. Falling object protection. Wear hard hats, barricade area below scaffold to forbid entry into that area. Use panels or screens if material is stacked higher than the two board. Build a canopy or erect a net below the scaffold that will contain or deflect falling objects. Overhead power lines. The possibility of electrocution is a serious consideration when working near overhead power lines. Check for proper clearance distances. What are the clearance distances between scaffolds and power lines? The standard requires specific clearance distances. Essential elements of safe scaffold construction. Use appropriate scaffold construction methods. Proper scaffold access. Properly use a competent person. Scaffold platform construction. Platform should be fully planked or decked with no more than 1 inch gaps. Be able to support its weight and 4 times the maximum load. Be at least 18 inches wide. Scaffold platform construction. No large gaps in front edge of platforms. Each abuted end of plank should rest on a separate support surface. Overlap platforms at least 12 inches over supports unless restrained to prevent planks not properly overlapped movement. Scaffold platform construction. No paint on wood platforms. Use scaffold grade wood, fully planked between front upright and guardrail support. Component pieces used should match and be at the same type. Erect on stable and level ground. Lock wheels and braces. Scaffold height. The height of the scaffold should not be more than 4 times its minimum base dimension unless guys, ties, or braces are used. Platform ends. Each end of a platform, unless cleated or otherwise restrained by hooks, should extend over its support by at least 6 inches. Supported scaffolds. Platforms supported by legs, outrigger beams, brackets, poles, upright posts, and frames. Restraints from tipping by guys, ties, or braces. Scaffolds, poles, legs, post frames, and uprights should be on base plates and mud sills or other firm foundation. Proper scaffold access. Provide access when scaffold platforms are more than 2 feet above or below a point of access. Permitted type of access. Ladders such as portable, hook-on, attachable, stairway type, and built-in. Stair towers, ramps, and walkways. May use building stairs and come-out window. What are the requirements for access to scaffolds? Employers must provide access when the scaffold platforms are more than 2 feet or 0.6 meters above or below a point of access. Direct access is acceptable when the scaffold is not more than 14 inches or 36 centimeters horizontally and not more than 24 inches or 61 centimeters vertically from the other surfaces. The standard prohibits the use of cross braces as means of access. When using ladders, bottom rung no more than 24 inches high. Can use some end frames. Can access from another scaffold, structure, or hoist. Do not access by cross braces. Suspension scaffold. Platform suspended by ropes or wires. Rope should be capable of supporting 6 times the load. Train worker to recognize hazards. Secure tie to prevent swaying. Support devices should rest on surfaces that can support 4 times the load. Competent person. Evaluates connection to ensure the supporting surfaces can support load. Inspect ropes for defects before shift. PFAS should have anchors independent of the scaffold support system. When is a competent person required for scaffolding? OSHA's scaffolding standard defines a competent person as one who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions, which are unsanitary, hazardous to employees, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. Moving scaffold. Workers should not be on a moving scaffold unless surface is level, height to base ratio is 2:1, outriggers when used are installed on both sides of scaffolds. Workers should be on any part of scaffold outside of the wheelbase or other supports. Competent persons should be on site to supervise. Do not use shore or lean-to scaffolds. Shore scaffolds, a supported scaffold which is placed against a building or structure and held in place with props. Lean-to scaffold, a supported scaffold which is kept erect by tilting it toward and resting it against a building or structure. Using scaffolds safely. Don't work on snow or ice-covered platform or during storms or high winds. Use taglines on swinging loads. Protect suspension ropes from heat and chemicals. A covered scaffold has special wind load consideration. Overhand brake laying from supported scaffolds. A guardrail or personal fall arrest system is required on all sides except the side where the worker is being done. Scaffold erection. Scaffold should only be erected, moved, dismantled, or altered under the supervision of a competent person Competent person selects and directs these workers and determines the feasibility of fall protection. Training recommendation. Train workers on scaffold hazards and procedures to control the hazards. The training should include nature of electrical, fall and falling, object hazards, how to deal with electrical hazard and fall protection systems, proper use of the scaffolds, scaffold load capacity, retrain as, retrain as necessary, training erectors and dismantlers, train workers involved in erecting, disassembling, moving, operating, repairing, maintaining, or inspecting a scaffold to recognize its hazards and the correct procedures to use. Avoid the main hazards of scaffolds: falls from elevation, bad planking, scaffold collapse, getting struck by falling tools or debris, electrocution,